So thank you very much for joining our webinar today. It's What's New in FCS Express 4. The webinar will be about an hour, and I'm going to really just give the highlights of some of the new features in FCS Express 4. I'm really not going to be able to get into much detail in any of them. The idea of this webinar is just so that you know that they're there, you can see what we did, and so you could potentially use it or look up how to do it afterwards. Everything that I show here, we are going to have tutorials on in the future. In fact, one of the first new things that I'm going to show you guys is our new website. The website has been completely revamped, still at www.denovosoftware.com, of course. What are the useful things for you guys as people who are upgrading from version 3? One, we have a brand new search capability, so you can actually just type in anything and search for it over here. It makes it really, really easy to find anything on the website. The other thing that's very useful for you guys is our features page. Our features page can be found if you scroll to the bottom right down over here. Let me draw it. Right down over here are our features. So that gives a full list of the features. We have why upgrade to FCS Express 4. That's also very useful. It has a sort of bullet list with links to more information about most things that I'm showing in the webinar today. The other thing about upgrading that's good to know, on our support, on our knowledge base, we have a section about upgrading from version 3 down here at the bottom, so you can check that out. Two key questions that are here that people seem to be asking a lot: where did the edit preferences go, and how to change your name or stain. I'll actually be showing that quickly in the webinar, but that's here for your reference, and we'll be adding more and more features over there or more and more questions as we realize what people are having trouble with and frequently asked things. The last thing I want to point out from the website, we do have a lot of other webinars coming up. I see that on the website attending are a lot of our clinical customers. We do have a webinar coming up focused specifically on getting started with FCS Express for flow cytometry IVD version. For version 4, there is actually features that are available. Not only is the IVD version registered with the FDA for in vitro diagnostic use as the version 3 one was, but there are also features that are available in the IVD version that are not available in the research use only version. These are features that really pertain to clinical labs and clinical reporting. Those features are listed on the features page that I described below down here on the main topics features over here, and we'll also be Tanya will be highlighting those in the webinar later this week. Okay, so what are the general goals of FCS Express 4? We incorporated tons of feedback from users like yourselves. I think most people know that we're pretty responsive and really do value all of your input and really appreciate our customers and try to provide good support. And part of that is incorporating the suggestions that our customers have asked. So we had 3 main goals. One of them was improving the user interface, and if you can look at version 4, you can see it looks very, very different from version 3. I'll get into more details about the user interface a bit later. One of the overarching goals was really to allow you guys to focus on getting your final result faster. And we sort of did that with version 3, where we made it so, your final result is not just a number on your dot plot or a percentage in a quadrant. Your final result is actually the PowerPoint presentation that you're making to your lab, or the final result is actually the poster that you're going to get out to present at a conference. In many other cases, the final result is not just the statistics from one sample, it's a comparison of the statistic across many samples in a bar chart or in a scatter plot, so you can see the effect of your drug. The final result that you get is a dose response curve that will show the effect of the IC50 of your sample or of your drug of interest on your cells, or the kinetics of the activity of whatever compound you're testing. So those are the final results, but how would you have to get that in FCS3 and in every other flow software? You'd have to export statistics to Excel, you'd have to combine them in Excel, collate them, and then again make bar charts, and then if something was wrong, go back to your primary data, adjust it, etc. As you'll see in this webinar, you can do all of that within FCS Express now, and all of that adjusts in real time as you change your analysis. And the other main focus we had on making common tasks easier. I think you'll find that we did that, and I'll try and highlight a lot of ways that we did that. One of the things that I do want to point out, be hard to see during the webinar, the speed of version 4 has been improved tremendously. FCS Express version 4, not only have all our algorithms been optimized, but they've also been changed to use as many CPUs as your computer has. So if you have a 4-core CPU, all of the computationally expensive processes like compensation, gating, gathering statistics, plotting, anything that uses a lot of computing power is now being done across all of the cores of your computer and will be much faster. So you can take advantage of all that really good hardware that you have. One of the other things that we did very innovative that I won't show, we'll have a webinar, is our collaboration tool. Built into FCS Express is effectively a go-to meeting software like the one we're using right now, where you can actually host a meeting with any other FCS Express user on the planet. You basically start the collaboration and you can create a new meeting, and when you create a new meeting, you get a meeting code, and you can give somebody the meeting code, and what they would do is join the meeting and type in the meeting ID here on the bottom. And when they type in the meeting ID and join your meeting, and you can have as many people in a meeting as you like, of course, you can show your FCS Express desktop. You can control other people's mouse with their permission, of course. You can transfer files to them. Anybody can show their screen. So it's a really, really powerful way of people collaborating and working together using FCS Express. So we will have a webinar on that a little bit later, just going through how to use the collaboration tool, but it's very, very easy, and it's all explained in our manual. The other thing which I won't talk about right now, but just so that everybody knows, another focus, as you can see from our website, is that we actually have 2 products now. We have FCS Express for flow cytometry, which is the classic one that we have here, and we now have FCS Express for image cytometry. FCS Express for image cytometry allows you to do a flow style analysis on data that was derived from images. So it's really, really powerful. If anybody does any imaging where they take images of hundreds of cells or thousands of cells and they want to combine them together in a flow style plot, please get in touch and we can give you more details or have a look on our website. Or in fact, as you can see here, we also have a webinar coming up, I think next week, Introduction to FCS Express for Image Cytometry. So all that is available as well. So with that preamble done, does anybody have any questions so far? Feel free to ask any questions before I begin on the actual nuts and bolts. Okay, so first thing before we begin is what is blatantly obvious. The software has a brand new user interface. That's the ribbon, so-called ribbon interface, popularized by the Microsoft 2007-2010 software packages, Office packages. Basically, instead of having a drop-down file menu or drop-down menus like before, the menus are organized on this ribbon. So you still have a topmost selection at the top, but instead of things drop down, they're dropped across. I won't go into detail how the ribbon works. Just some key things that you can do with the ribbon. So again, you pick the tabs over there. The ribbon, like all my ribbons, has a quick access. These are things here at the top that you can actually put up there that stay up there persistently. So for instance, the save button here and the undo, which is disabled but is over there, are both there all the time, so you don't have to switch to the tab. So you can, I'll show you how to customize that later. One thing that you guys should know if you've never used this big button at the top left that says 4, that's our FCS 4 logo, that's kind of the equivalent of the file menu. Okay, so you can open a new, create a layout, save the layout, all of the things that were over here. One of the key things, your preferences are down at the bottom right. You can see that it's highlighted right next to the exit. This is where your edit preferences are. So that's that's there. Just to answer questions, the cost for collaboration version, and the collaboration version can be used with the research version of the software. If you do want to ask any questions, you have to type them into the question and answer. There is no audio for the attendees, unfortunately. We have something like 50, 60 people on here, so it's difficult to allow people to speak without coordinating, like raising hands or something. So if you do have any questions, please just type it in. And the new version works on Windows XP to Windows 7 and everything in between. Okay. So once again, I promised, so the edit preferences is located here. In order to choose your name or stain, this is the first thing that people seem to ask about. You have to go to the data loading and your FCS file options and choose the name or stain from the drop-down list. Probably the only thing that you could do in version 3 that you still can't do in version 4 that we actually is a little bit limited is that you have to choose your name or stain in the preferences. You can't choose it on a plot-by-plot basis anymore, so it's not on the format screen. And that's for technical reasons that are far too boring to discuss here. But I think most people, if you just set it once and you use the same instrument, then you're going to be fine. Okay? And a lot of other preferences are still there in the edit prep as well. Okay, so as you can see, we have the user interface here. The other thing that's very, very cool, you can actually view multiple pages at once. So if you go to the View tab, you can see over here that you can actually view from 1 page through 4 pages at the same time. So I'll show you guys that. So let's say I were to view 2 pages at the same time. You see that the screen has split in half, and I'm showing 2 pages. And now right now they're both showing the same page because I only have 1 page in the layout. So how do another thing is you can see at the bottom that there are tabs now showing the pages, and if I want to add a new page, I can quickly just click this plus button that's located on any of the tabs that are there. And you notice that if I click the plus button to add a new page, it of course adds it to both pages, but now I'm seeing 2 different pages in the layout, and I can show that to you if I insert a text box on page 2, and I say this is a text box on page 2, and I can have a different text box on page 1. This is another text box on page 1. Okay, and both of the pages you can easily navigate between them by just flipping tabs, and you can see that now the right-hand side, because I clicked the page 1 tab, is now showing page 1, and now it's showing page 2. You can, of course, rename the pages any way you want. If you simply right-click on the tab and go to Format, you can change the name from page 2 to be My Control Cells. And you can see that the tab has now changed on both of them to say My Control Cells. You can actually move things from one page to another now. So if I take this text box from page 2, I can easily just drop it onto page 1, and now it's moved to page 1. You can do the same thing for plots and any other object that is on a page. For people who are a little more advanced users, you know that one of the problems in moving plots from one page to another in FCS Express version 3, you could cut and paste them, but if there were any tokens linked to the original plots, the tokens would not be linked to the pasted version on the new page. That's been fixed for version 4, so if you actually cut and paste or you actually move a plot from one page to the other, like I showed here, all of the tokens will still maintain their links to the plot in the new location. Okay, so that's very, very useful. And of course, if there are text tokens in the plot, in the text boxes, the tokens will move with the text boxes as well. One thing that Tanya will show in detail, I'm not going to get into it at all, not only can you change the name of the page, the visibility of the page can also be dynamically changing. So for instance, for a clinical lab, if you have a page that's devoted to blast, maybe 3 or 4 pages devoted to blast cells, and you can set up a token that says don't show these pages if the blast cell percentage is less than 5%. Or whatever cutoff you decide. And then those pages will effectively disappear from the layout until such time as the blast page, until such time as your criteria is met. Okay, so that allows you to not have to navigate through pages and pages. You can have a lot of pages in your layout, but only the ones that are applicable will be visible. And of course, every page now can have its own background. You can also rearrange pages just by dragging and dropping. So if I want my control cells to be the first page in the layout, I can just click on the My Control Cells tab, drag it to the left, and you can see if you look in the right-hand window, there's a little triangle at the bottom of the page next to where it says page 1, and I dropped it, and you can see now that My Control Cells is the first page, and page 1 is the second page. So much easier to rearrange pages as well. Okay. So are there any questions on what I've shown so far? There's a question about tokens and gates and plots with tokens. I'm going to show that a little bit about that in just a moment. We've done a lot to do with that, a lot to make that your life easier with that regard. One other thing I do want to show very, very quickly. Everything is in version 4 is backwards compatible with version 3 and will work with any layout that you created in version 3. So moving pages around, dragging and dropping plots, if you load the layout from version 3, it will load in version 4 and you can do everything. One thing I do want to stress, if you do have a layout from version 3 that for some reason doesn't work, there are probably conservatively 50,000 layouts created in FCS Express version 3 at this point. Please contact us. Don't get frustrated. Don't get annoyed. Don't say it's broken. Just contact us and send us the layout, and we will make sure that version 4 is fixed so that it works. Okay, because our intent, I think we've done a very good job, but there could be some incompatibilities left, and we want to work with you on that. One thing I do want to stress, FCS Express has a brand new docking system. So for instance, our file list now can be docked anywhere. Many other things can be docked as well. We'll have a whole layout on docking. Suffice it to say that when you move something now, a dockable window, you'll see that there's a 4-headed arrow appears, and you can move just your mouse over any one of the 4 heads of the arrows, and it will dock to that side. Okay, some fancy things, once things are docked, you can hide them. That means that they collapse, and you see that there's a tab on the right side right over here for the data list. Okay, and then if I hover my mouse over the tab, then the data list just scrolls out smoothly for me, and I can pin it back. Okay, so many things now are dockable. For instance, you can now keep your custom tokens window open on the right side and your data list open on the left side. The data list is what we used to call the file list. Okay. You can also drop on top of each other. If I take this data list and I move it, you see a 4-headed arrow appears in the center of the screen, but as I move it over the custom tokens, you see that a 4-headed arrow now appears on top of the custom tokens window. If I drop in the middle of that 4-headed arrow, in that square in the middle, they will drop on top of each other, and now you can see at the bottom left there's actually 2 tabs, data and custom tokens, and you can just scroll between them to show whichever one you want. Okay, so now I'm showing the custom tokens, and if I hide them, there's now 2 tabs on the side of the window, on the left-hand side of the window, and I can pop one or the other open. Okay, so that's another neat thing that you can do. This goes with our navigators that I'll show in a little bit. Gating, what are some of the new things that we did about gating? We did a lot of new things with that. Before I go into gating, I'll show one very nice feature. So let me just load up just a data file. Okay, so I'll show a couple of features to do with dragging and dropping. For dragging and dropping, there's a lot of features that you can do. If I want, if I want a statistic from this plot and I want to create a token from this plot, let's say the number of events on this plot. In version 3, I had to go into my text box, right-click, insert a token, pick a statistic, select my plot, and then go to statistic and pick number of events. In version 4, I can just say the number of events are, and actually I can drag my plot directly into the text box, and I can choose to paste. It'll ask me, do I want to paste a keyword or a statistic? And if I want to paste a statistic, it just goes, it already knows what plot you want because you dragged it in, and you can just pick the number of events. Okay? You can do a very similar thing with gates. If I made a gate on my plot, and just leave it with the default name of gate 1, I can say the number of events in my gate are, and I can actually drag the gate into my text box. Again, it knows that a gate can't have a keyword. A gate is only a statistic, so it doesn't ask you for keyword or statistics. And I can put the number of events, and you can see here 5075. These tokens, the text box does not have to be on the same page as the tokens, as the plot that it came from. The text box can be on any page in the layout. So if I were to view multiple pages, for instance, and I'll go in this side, on the left side I'm showing the page 1, and on the right side I'm showing my control cells. If I insert a text box, I can actually drag the gate onto page 2 and insert the number of events in that text box there. Okay? So you don't have to, everything is already set up and already linked together for you. And just to show that if I move this plot from page 1 to the other page, you can see that the tokens are still all working and they all update on both pages, both on page 1 and on page 2 as I move my gate around. Okay? So everything is all still linked up together. Okay. Another neat feature people always or have been asking for a while is once I make a gate on a plot, is there an easy way to apply the gate to another plot, create a new one? Well, now in FCS Express version 3, actually, in version 4, if I actually just drag this gate to an empty part of my page, it actually makes a brand new plot that is a duplicate of the plot that you just dragged from, but is gated on the particular gate that you just dragged. So that's pretty cool. You can now just change to another parameter and see that the data updates as you gate. Okay? So that's pretty neat. For people who are used to using WinList, where dragging the gate onto a blank area of the page actually deletes the gate, we have that option as well, and that's available in our edit preferences. Okay? A couple other little small points about gating. Polygon gates have been enhanced. And freeform gates as well, so you can actually proportionally resize the gate. You notice that the vertices are all there, and you can actually resize a single vertex, just like you could before. But there are 4 circles. The 4 circles, you can see there's one here on the outside, one here at the bottom right, on the bottom left, and on the top left. I don't know if you can see the spotlight that I have on them. Let me circle them for you. So there's one here, and here, and here. These actually resize the entire polygon gate proportionally, and so you can see that now it's shrinking and growing proportionally to the original shape. Okay, so that's a big help. I want you to notice also right now I have it set up that it shows the gate name like it did in version 3. However, we have some brand new preferences under the gating. When you go to the Gate tab, you can actually choose what comes up in the text box. Have a little more flexibility. So you can insert the gate name in the text box, but you can also have that the text box by default inserts a statistic, and you can choose among all of these statistics to go by default. Okay, so we've got that as well. One of the other things that was a question that people often had is when they delete their default text box, let's say the gate name text box, or for the quads, for instance, if they had quads on this particular plot, and they had accidentally deleted the quad text boxes, there was no easy way to get them back. You'd have to make your own text boxes again and put the statistics in. Now you can simply right-click and go recreate the quad text boxes, and you can say recreate only the missing ones or recreate all of them. So I'll recreate the missing ones, and you can see the text boxes popped back up in the top left corners of the screen. And on the 2D plot, on the plots, I can say recreate the gate text boxes, and now the gate name text box popped back up again. Okay, so another little handy feature really is based totally on customer request and customer suggestions. Some of the other things that you can do now, if a gate, the replacing and creating gates is made a lot easier. One of the neat things you can do when you make a gate, you can actually choose whether the cells inside the shape should be included or excluded. So you can make a gate a not gate right away. So if you want to highlight the debris on your plot and then say this gate should exclude the debris, you don't have to make another gate that says not debris. The debris gate is a not gate by itself because it's behaving the opposite. Normal, the version 3 gates and in every other one is on is an include gate, and now we have these nice exclude gates. And we've also done things to make replacing gates a little bit easier. If I wanted to replace this polygon gate with an elliptical gate, I just make sure that the polygon is selected when I start drawing the elliptical gate, and then you can see that gate 2 has already come up there by default as the one you want to replace. And in fact, we have an option to even bypass this dialog completely, and basically if there was a gate selected when you started drawing another gate, just automatically replace that. Okay, so again, that was based on some customer suggestions who wanted some easier ways of replacing existing gates. The other small thing, some people, again, based on customer complaints or suggestions, the gate names, the default gate names now reuse themselves. So it used to be that if I deleted gate 1, for instance, the next gate would still be called gate 3 because it just kept going in order. But now you can see that when I make a new gate, it comes up as gate 1 again. It's reusing the lowest available gate name when making new gates. Minor point, but has a lot of people have asked for that. Okay, so if anybody has any questions on any of the features I've shown, I know I'm going through it really quickly. This is not designed to be a tutorial how to use everything and how to do everything. It's just designed to show you that these features exist. You can look them up in the manual or join one of our many other webinars that we're going to be going into these features in a lot more detail, much slower, so you can see how they work in more detail. All of our webinars will be recorded. They'll be placed on our recorded webinars page that's available on our website. Okay. So one of the other things I wanted to show you that's brand new that doesn't exist in any other flow software as far as we know is the ability that we have to create your own kind of spreadsheets in FCS Express and to plot your own custom data. And I'll show you how to do that. Well, I won't show you how to do it. I'll show you what you can do just so that you can see what the possibilities are. Okay, so I'm just loading a layout that I made. I'm not going to go through building it from scratch. I loaded this layout on purpose, or this layout is set up on purpose to show another new feature we have. In version 3, if you had saved your layout linked, then and the data files were gone or were moved, the layout would just load up blank, and you would have to figure out where all the data files were moved to or even what data files were in what plots. In version 4, you notice it's popping you up a dialog, and it's popping you up a dialog and telling you that the experiment you are opening refers to the data file blah, 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 apo mono 1, but it's not found where we think it is. Please give us a directory where you think where it is. So you can say, oh, yeah, that's right, I've moved it and I'm going to go to the new folder where it is. Here it is. You notice when I'm in a place that's not correct, it's telling me that it cannot find the file apomono1 in the bar and scatter plot folder. Okay, it's giving you an error message, but as soon as you click on a folder that does have that data file, the message goes away. So you know that you've got that. Okay, so once I click on this, it's now actually loading from a new location. Okay, so now it's loading up the data. And it's giving you a message saying that the replace, telling you exactly what it replaced, because it actually, this layout file has several data files, and it found all of those data files in the new location. So it didn't ask you one by one to confirm each data file. It just loaded all of them. And you can see here that this layout is a layout that, let me increase the zoom a little bit so that it's blown up a little bit bigger. Okay. So what you can see here are actually some bar plots. There are 4 plots from different samples along the left-hand side. There's a live gate and an apoptotic gate. And you can see bar charts here plotting the % live and the % apoptotic for each sample. And you notice that as I move either the apoptotic gate, which I just did now, or I move the live gate, my bars in my bar chart are updating in real time, showing the new statistical value that I'm doing. Okay, imagine how you had to do this before. You'd have to run a batch process. You'd export it to Excel. In Excel, you'd build a bar chart from all the different samples. And then if in Excel you thought that something looked a little bit weird and you realized you made a mistake, you'd have to go back to FCS Express, change your gates, figure out, do a re-export again. Now you've got all of the samples. Everything is updating in real time. And in fact, on bar charts, if you look on the bottom one, you notice that you can update, you can have overlays and have 2 bars next to each other. One of the things that I do want to point out, if you look in the chart over here, there's several things that are very interesting. One, the plot on the bottom, you notice the error bars. The error bar heights are actually also based on the data and are updating dynamically as you change your data to reflect the new error bars. And I want you to notice the colors of these 2 bars over here as I move my gates. You notice how they change to blue. They change to blue because you can actually specify a criteria when a bar should be highlighted, and you can specify what the highlight color is. So if a bar meets a certain criteria, then it will automatically, and you decide what criteria is, and you build that with tokens, the bar will automatically change to the highlight color. This is very useful if you're trying to plot a statistic and you know the normal range for the statistic. You may say keep the bar black when the statistic is in the normal range, but if it's below the normal range or above the normal range, I want it highlighted. So the bars that are sort of out of whack or the statistics that are abnormal jump out at you right away because they're highlighted in a different color. Okay, how do we do this? I'm not going to get into it at all in this webinar. We do have a tutorial for it, and we will be having a webinar for it, and it's described in the manual. But essentially, the whole trick is that the new version of FCS Express allows you to build a spreadsheet. We call it a custom data, but you can think of it as a spreadsheet. And basically inside the spreadsheet, you can have tokens. So if I click in any one of the cells, you can see that the little editor comes up. And even though in the grid it says 84.89, where it's really getting that is a token, which is the % of gated cells for plot number 3 on overlay number 1 in the live gate. Okay, and you can see here that all of the cells have tokens, including this highlight criteria has tokens. And basically the plots, the bar plots, and in a minute I'll show you the scatter, are linked to this spreadsheet. So because this spreadsheet contains tokens, it will update as your data updates, and because the bar plots are linked to the spreadsheet, to show that visually, if I erase all my drawings, The spreadsheet itself is linked to all of the different plots. All of the tokens are different plots here. And all bar plots are linked to my spreadsheet. So essentially, as your plots update, it will update the spreadsheet or the custom data, and as the custom data updates, the bar plot will update. You can put any tokens you want inside these custom data. They can be simple statistics like now, or they can be custom tokens or of calculations showing ratios and whatever you want. It's incredibly flexible, very, very powerful. Not only can you show bar plots, you can actually scatter plots. You can see that you scatter plot the percent apoptotic versus the percent live of the different samples. And again, as I move my gate, the dots and the bars are updating in real time, showing the statistics in that spreadsheet. Okay, a practical case for where this is used. I mean, it's used in many, many different ways. You can compare bar charts across samples and all sorts of stuff. But one thing that you can certainly do is, for instance, here is a titration experiment for CD64. I won't go into details, but what I do want to show in a moment, just as it loads up, what I do want to show here is this is showing a CD64 expression of the graph of the CD64 expression on the monocyte population, and you can see here again I have my custom data at the bottom showing all of my statistics. Those statistics are coming actually from plots on the second page. All of the data plots are on page 2 here. As I flip to the second page, you can see them. Okay, so this is where the raw plots are. And the very cool thing is that not only am I plotting the raw data values, the monofluorescence with increasing concentration, I have a regression automatically calculated. And as I move my mono gate around, not only are the points updating their position, but the regression line is recalculating in real time. Okay, so as I move the mono to a weird spot, so that they're really over the lymph gate where there's CD64 is basically just background, you can see that the data is updating and my regression line is recalculating. And based on the regression line, you can actually extract the fit parameters like the IC50 or the 90% saturation or whatever you want and use that in a token and report it in a token. Okay, it's really, really awesome. So right now we support about 4 different regressions. In the next couple of weeks we'll be adding 20, 30 more. So basically any regression that you use for biology will be available. And again, this goes with our mission of helping you get your final result faster. In other flow software and in FCS Express 3, they could only take you this far. They could take you to making the plots and making the gates and to go, but that's not the result of your experiment. That's not about these plots and one statistic. Care about the value at 90% saturation, which you can only gain by doing a regression and calculating that, and you can do that now all in FCS Express, and it all updates in real time. Okay? So that's another cool feature. Another neat feature that we have is our new heat map feature for plate-based analysis. If it works with any flow cytometer, as far as we know, that has a here's one. It works with any flow cytometer that has a high content module, the BD high content, the Quanta, the Eclipse by Sony, the Guava instruments, the Accuray with its high content reader, the IntelliSight. Anybody at this point who we know of that 96 well plate format possible, we've made ourselves compatible so that we can read their data. And I just do want to show just a little bit about how the heat maps are working. I think this might be from an imaging file, so it might be just taking a little bit to load up. So that'll be a second. The heat maps are actually very powerful. You can actually plot, here's an example. Again, this is from an imaging analysis, so it's kind of, oh no, this one's from a flow. This is actually cool. This is perfect. So you can see here that on the heat map, you can show different statistics. So right now, you can have different color codings. You can actually go to the heat map and plot any statistic you want. So right now I'm plotting the median intensity, but I could plot the median intensity for FL3, and it will change the colors on the heat maps. These axes titles are fixed right now, so they're not changing with the data, but you can see that the color actually changed. Okay, we support many different coloring schemes. This is one of the many coloring schemes. You can change them at our color levels, and you can see that we support several different coloring schemes. The details of them are we'll go over in another webinar. The cool thing about the plots is that they can be gated. They work on any size plate from 24 well plate, I think 8 well plates to 1536 well plates. So they work with any kind of plate. And you notice that the heat maps themselves can be gated. So this heat map right now is only showing the events that are it's currently showing the FL2 median only for the cells that are in gate 1. And gate 1 is somewhere that I'm not really sure where it is, so I'm going to just do it on the live cells. I'll change this to only show the live cells gate. So now I'm showing only the median intensity of the live cells gate. And you can see that as I move my live cells gate around, the heat map is adjusting, and you can see that actually since I moved it to a spot where there's very few cells, there's many wells that don't even have a single cell in that live gate, and they're just completely disappearing. Okay? So the heat map can be gated. That's really, really useful. And the other thing is that you can actually create gates on a heat map itself. So and again, we're going to be showing this far slower and in far more detail in the high content webinar we're having later in the week. But if I want to create a gate on the heat map, and let's say I want to create a gate on this well, and I'm going to call it my well gate, I can actually just apply the well gate to my histogram, to my dot plot here, sorry, by just applying the gate, and I'm going to apply the well gate. And you can see that these are the cells in the well gate, and you can actually very easily change the well gate. I can just move it around, and you can see that the dot plot is updating. Well, it's hard to see, but the dot plot is updating as I move my gate around. All of the wells have a similar forward scatter and side scatter, so it's a little difficult to see the plots updating. But the dot plot will update as you move your gate around. Okay, so that's a bit about the high content. There are a couple here actually that this grid is a grid showing all of the numerical values that are being represented in the high content grid to the left. Okay, so not only can you show color-coded values, you can show the raw values as well. Okay, so that was a 2-minute introduction to heat maps, but you can show any statistic on a heat map. You can show that statistic from any parameter. And again, we have a webinar coming up. You can go to that webinar page I showed before, and all about heat maps. Okay, so what are some of the new basic plotting capabilities we have just on regular dot plots? The dot plots and density plots actually have been given a makeover, especially the contour plots and especially the contour plots and the density plots. Those ones have really, we've put a lot of work into them. Whoops, I'm going to the wrong spot. Just to show a simple example. Okay, so you can see right off the bat they look much nicer than they did before. You do have a lot of color levels as well. Let me show the equivalent density plot right next to it. Okay, so you do have a lot of color levels as well. There's a lot more things that you can do. I can increase the smoothing on this to make it look a little nicer, for instance. So this is our rainbow palette. You can see it looks a lot nicer than before. You can actually show outliers now. So we're showing the outliers on the plot. You can choose the dot size of the outlier if you want and the color of the outlier dots. So now you see the outlier dots are a lot bigger. And there's a lot of different palettes that you can use. I particularly like this black and white stripes palette. That looks pretty nice. And some other palettes. We have our flame palette that uses the colors of a flame, where red is the hottest and blue is the coldest. So we've really, really improved those. Speaking of improving these just visual things, we also have improved the export of images from FCS Express. You can now export in TIFF, PNG, GIF, and several other formats. So you're not limited to just JPEG, bitmap, and metafile like you were in version 3. Okay, so there's a lot of other export formats that you can choose. Histograms have also been given a bit of a makeover. You can do a bunch more things with histograms right now. Let me add some overlays to it. So what you can do, this is sort of our standard plot. The histograms can be on top of each other, but you can actually also stack them. So if I display multiple overlays as stacked over here, then they automatically just get put one on top of each other like that. Very, very handy. You have some flexibility about how the axis label is displayed, and you can actually change the y-axis now. Instead of being at a 90-degree angle, it's at a 0-degree angle. And you can see, that over there. That's very handy. Some other things we've changed are the normalization options. You can actually normalize based on an overlay, or you can overlay to the number of events or to a particular peak value. Okay, so there's a lot more normalization options. It's not like before. The only option we had was number of events. Now you can normalize to the peak value of a particular overlay, or you can actually say, I want the peak of each plot to be 8, and it will normalize every overlay such that the peak of that overlay is value 8. Okay, so that's a neat thing that we did. Another neat thing I do want to point out is that for people who use Diva and other software, you can now divide by a factor on the axis labels, so that you don't have to show 65535 or 25535. If you want to, you could divide the axis by a factor of 1,000, and they'll come out looking like the Diva plots from 0 to 255 instead of from 0 to 255, 655, or whatever it comes out to be. Okay, again, another just user request that we put in that quite a few people have asked for. Okay, and we really do, I do want to restate, we really do appreciate suggestions and comments from our users. When we were putting this together, we went back to our forums and back to our support and got together every single suggestion that people had given to us and combined them together and saw how many people suggested what and all that stuff, and a lot of it really went into this new version of the software. Another thing that I will just touch on, but is going to be in more detail, tokens and custom tokens have been given a bit of a revamp. Nothing super significant, but they are dockable, and you add custom tokens. And for people who have a lot of custom tokens, you can actually create a folders. So you can call my ratio custom tokens, and you can make another folder and call it my classification tokens, and then put different custom tokens in one folder or another. Okay, this is from customers of ours who have like literally hundreds of custom tokens in every layout. They wanted a better way to organize it, and you can put folders inside folders just by dragging them around like I did here. One of the new things we have is canned comments. I won't go into that. Oh, again, this is only available in the clinical edition, but canned comments are very good for clinical. You can put in canned text to go along with specific diagnoses. The canned comments can contain tokens and tables and be formatted any way you like. And then at the time that you're analyzing a case, you just drop the appropriate canned comment into a text box anywhere on the layout, and it'll be there. Again, Tanya will go over that in our demo. One thing that I do want to show that, again, in terms of making things easier, you can actually drag and drop custom tokens as well. So if I were to make a custom token here, just to show a little bit about the dragging and dropping, if I make a custom token here, and I'll just make a gate first, and I'm going to make a new token, and I'm going to call this my +1 token. And what I'm going to do is I want the number of events in this gate +1 for whatever reason. So the first thing that I do is I click to edit the token, and I put in an equal sign. That is, the equal sign is something that you need, just like Excel, to evaluate a formula. And I can actually drag my gate in here, pick the number of events, put in a +1, just type it in, and then anywhere where I have a text box, I can actually drag my custom token directly into the text box. So now it's 5078, and you see it's updating. And one of the real cool things is the custom tokens now update in real time. So you see it's now 1, and the value is 5652. If I type 10, the value is 5661. Okay, so you're changing your equation actually updates in real time, and you can drag and drop between the custom tokens and the layouts and drag and drop everywhere. Speaking of drag and drop, we have a whole new organizer feature that allows you to view the organization of your layouts. We call them navigators. One navigator I'll just show here is the page navigator, and you can see that it shows you very quickly that on page 1 you have 3 plots and a text box. And if I were to add another page to the layout, you can see that the navigator is now showing that there's page 2. And if I drag the histogram within the navigator onto page 2 within the navigator, you can see it disappeared from page 1, and actually if I flip over to page 2, it moved to page 2. Okay, so the navigators allow you to both give you an overview of your analysis. They also allow you to move things around about your analysis. And we have gate navigators, layout navigators, data navigators, and we'll have a whole webinar on those as well. Okay, so that is that's about all for now. There's a lot of more features, of course, that I haven't managed to get to, but we've already used up our hour. But I think I've touched on the major highlights. Again, how to get more information about some of the things I showed. We have our upcoming webinars. These are all upcoming in the next few days. There's Intro to FCS Express for Image Cytometry. The High Content Analysis is on February the 9th. A Getting Started, which goes over not every single feature but goes over in more details, is on February 11th. The IVD one, for those IVD customers or clinical lab customers that are on the call, I'd highly suggest you check this one out. Tanya will go in a lot more detail about the IVD features. So there's that. On our website, we also have and with every copy of FCS Express, you can see inside FCS Express, you can get the tutorials by going to the application button and then tutorials. The tutorials and manual are now both online in this version. You can just click at the bottom of this page here, and it will take you to our tutorials, and you can see that we have a whole bunch of tutorials as well. One thing that I do want to stress, in FCS Express version 4, kinetics is included with every copy. Cell proliferation is included with every copy, and a basic cell cycle analysis is included with every single copy. What do we mean by basic cell cycle analysis? The basic one will only do one cycle with no background or debris correction. So it's just straight one cycle fitting. If that's all you need, that comes with FCS Express. If you need more than that, you'll have to purchase the multi-cycle advanced version that comes with that you'll have to purchase from us from Phoenix Flow Systems. Okay, but the basic DNA analysis comes with it. Okay, upgrades pricing for current customers. If we go back over here, there's our upgrade pricing. I have it over here. Essentially, it's on v3upgradepricing.shtml. Basically, depending on when you purchased FCS Express version 3, you'll get either 100% credit or 35% credit of that purchase towards your version 4 purchase. Okay, so I think a very, very generous upgrade pricing. And in order to find out how much credit you have, you can actually just log into your account on our website here. And when you log into your account, there'll be a section on the side that says View My Credit, and you'll be able to see how much credit you can apply towards a version 4 purchase. If you have any questions about that credit, just email us at sales@thenovosoftware.com. And as usual, if you have questions about anything that we wrote here, you can contact us at any one of our email addresses, support@thenovosoftware.com or sales@thenovosoftware.com, and we'll be glad to help out. So that's basically it. Thank you everybody very much for attending. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them into your question and answer section, and we'll be glad to ask. You can do post-acquisition compensation in version 4 the same way as in version 3. Stay tuned to that in version 4. We have some pretty exciting enhancements that will be released shortly to the auto compensation setup. We still have plans of improving the compensation for version 4. But right now it works exactly the same essentially as version 3. There are some small enhancements to that. The other question, how much is the new software? If you go to our website, purchase prices, and you go to FCS Express for flow cytometry, the research use only, you can see that the pricing is here. For our clinical customers, you can get a beta of the clinical version to try out the new features. Tanya, I'm sure, will describe that. The clinical version is not yet for sale. We're waiting a month or two to make sure that everything is stable and everything is working. We've run all of our validation and could release technically at this moment, but because at this point there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of patients a week whose data is being analyzed with FCS Express, we're very, very cognizant that the clinical version has to be perfect, and so we are delaying that a little bit just to make sure that there are no unexpected surprises. Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, as I mentioned before, we're always available at support@thenovosoftware.com. Most of the people here on familiar faces or familiar names have contacted us many times, so please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. We really appreciate everything. We do have our online forums still as well under support, so you could go to our online forums and ask some questions, and we really look forward to you giving it a try. Speaking of giving it a try, you can download the version 4 demo just from Download FCS Express Demo. There's a 30-day trial just like before. You should be able to load up all of your old layouts and try out the new features. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.